Funding for Texas Monthly Talks is provided in part by Public Strategies Incorporated, managing campaigns for corporations, around the clock, around the world. And by J.P. Morgan Chase, a Texas financial institution serving large and small businesses, governments, schools, churches, and individual Texans just like you for more than 135 years. And also by Texas Mutual.
Sometimes the littlest ideas become the biggest innovations. That's true in your business and in ours. Texas Mutual Insurance Company, innovating workers' comp insurance for Texas.
And also by the Matson McHale Foundation, in support of public television. And by MFI Foundation, improving the quality of life within our community. And also by the Alice Clayburgh Reynolds Foundation. And viewers like you. Thank you.
I'm Evan Smith of Texas Monthly. Before there was Ellen, before there was Rosie or Roseanne, before there was Whoopi, there was the undisputed comedien's comedienne, an accomplished creator of iconic characters, a peerless storyteller on stage and off, a fine actress whose filmography is so much shorter than you'd think, and is therefore all the more impressive since every performance, it seems, is one for the books, and whose television roles are so much more numerous than you'd think, stretching back as they do some 40 years. An Academy Award nominee, the winner of 2 Tonys, 2 Peabodys, 6 Emmys, a Grammy, and for good measure, the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Any way you slice it, the arc of Lily Tomlin's life has been ample proof that unending talent and discriminating choices are a dangerous combination and elevate you to near legend status. Born in Detroit to working-class parents, Tomlin attended Wayne State University and began doing stand-up in clubs in her hometown and eventually New York City. Her first TV spot was on Merv Griffin's show in 1965, but it was 4 years later that she got her real break. A regular gig on the sketch comedy show Laugh-In, alongside the likes of Joanne Worley, Flip Wilson, and Ruth Buzzy. The first of her 18 films was Robert Altman's Nashville in 1975. She would work with the celebrated director several more times in The Player, Shortcuts, and A Prairie Home Companion. Her other notable credits include 9 to 5 with Jane Fonda and Dolly Parton, 2 David O. Russell movies, Flirting with Disaster and I Heart Huckabees, the TV shows Murphy Brown, The West Wing, and Magic School Bus, and the extraordinary one-woman Broadway show, The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe. When we caught up with Tomlin on a recent trip to Austin, she was ebullient and expansive, having helped raise a record amount for a favorite cause, Planned Parenthood, and having visited the girls' school named for her friend Ann Richards, the late Texas governor. At 69, and who can believe that so much time has passed since little Edith Ann first dangled her legs, Tomlin is clearly in the midst of an exciting and active stage of her career, which by all appearances is very much in its prime. A conversation with Lily Tomlin on this edition of Texas Monthly Talks. Essentially do a version of that. This will be a fun night. Okay. I got the call. It's on the one. And on PBS, Lewis. And then, I stopped my show to get back to it, but it's okay. Can I run this? Okay, everybody please take your seats. All right, good. Lily Tomlin, hello.
Yes, hello, Evan.
Good to see you.
Great to see you.
You're such a fixture in Texas these days, it's almost like your home.
Well, you know, kind of. It could be my home easily. I used to own some lots on the Pedernales.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I fell in love with, I played at UT one year, years and years ago, and during that same period is when I met Ann Richards and got to be friendly with her. But there was these people had a little house out there on the highway overlooking the Pedernales, and they had a funicular that went down to the thing.
Oh, great.
And I went out there one night, and they were great hosts, and we had a lot of fun, and I got on that funicular, and I just swung back and forth half the night, and there were these lots next door, and I said, well, I just have to buy these lots.
Oh, of course.
This is heaven.
But
heaven on earth.
So what happened? Nothing came of it?
I never did anything
Never
with
built.
it. I sold the darn lots.
Hopefully before the market collapsed.
I think I sold them before the market rose.
Oh, well, I was going to say good, but maybe not exactly.
No.
Before we get into your career and specific things, I want to ask about Nashville and the West Wing and so much. I want to ask you about an elephant.
Yes.
There is a story, it is actually a serious story, of an elephant at the Dallas Zoo named Jenny that you have become from afar quite interested in.
Yes, we had a similar situation in L.A. We had 2 elephants there elephants are not good at zoos anyway, and about 7 or 8 major zoos have closed their elephant exhibits. But Jenny, particularly in Dallas, is, she was wrenched from the wild when she's like 2. That's how they have to get those elephants, and they kill the mothers and all that stuff. Right. And so she's not even weaned, and they bring her, and then she spends 8 years in the circus under terrible circumstances. And then 22 years she's been in the Dallas Zoo, right, living on like 1/3 of an acre.
I mean, and this is an elephant. This is,
bless her. And she weighs almost 11,000 pounds, and
not in her element.
She's got a lot of. She's an elephant with special needs, as they say, and that's what they say in the. And elephant experts all over the country have, and all over the world, have written and lobbied to get Jenny moved to the sanctuary. There's a great elephant sanctuary in Tennessee. Amazingly enough, and there's one in Northern California, but this one in Tennessee wants Jenny. Mm-hmm. But it's a zoo is really not to denigrate the zoo business, but it is a business.
Of course.
And elephants are a big attraction. The thing is that poor elephant Jenny. She self-mutilates. She bangs her head against the steel cable. She sways continuously. She has really bad ankle and foot problems, and she's only 32 now, and most elephants live to be quite old.
Quite a bit longer. And the theory here, although it sounds like
bad shape,
it sounds like it's a joke, but it's not, is the elephant is depressed.
She is totally depressed. So this sanctuary, where they have like 2,700 acres, they're roaming like they would in the wild. Right. Because elephants in the wild roam 30, 40 miles a day. And here they are stuck on this like 1/3 of an acre. It's really pretty tragic.
Amazing.
And so I think she's become symbolic to me. It's like the literal elephant in the room or something. I just feel like it's a sign of, our lack of consciousness or insensitivity to this large mammal who is suffering so much, visibly suffering. I don't want to underscore anything negative about the Dallas Zoo. I'm sure they're doing their very best within their limited consciousness. Right. There's a wonderful group there called Concerned Citizens for Jenny, and they've been trying to get her to the sanctuary, and it's an uphill battle, but anybody in Dallas that wants to participate or support Jenny, write the mayor, write the council, because they're going to have to intercede, because the zoo director, Greg Hudson, is not going to send Jenny away because it's too career focused to send her away. Yeah,
it's a remarkable. It's a remarkable story, and it sounds made up, but it's actually it's all true. Is this the kind of thing I don't think of you as someone who over your career has necessarily been this out in front of causes.
I have been many, mostly more human issues.
But not like this, though.
No, I don't know. It's just taken my attention, because as I started to say, we had a similar case in L.A. where we had 2 elephants, and we got Ruby sent to the sanctuary.
That worked out.
But Billy is still there, and they're talking about building a $40 million habitat. They start all this stuff, and they're doing the same thing in Dallas now. Even though this zoo is underfunded and operating in the red, they say they're going to build a $4 million habitat for the elephants, and that's going to be 3 or 4 acres. But they're going to bring a couple more elephants in, and that's just a lot of elephants. I'm going to go to Dallas in a couple of weeks, and I hope to do a little fundraiser for Jenny.
Elephant. That's great.
Because to try to keep things going. But I think if you went and saw Jenny or you looked at her online, you would be sympathetic.
Sure. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that.
Me too.
And now let's talk about stuff that's much less important, which is movies.
All right.
I
agree.
I am shocked to be reminded that you've only made 18 films, because I think of you as someone who is constantly in films and constantly in front of me and constantly on screen, but it's only been 18 films.
Is that how many?
Amazing. And Nashville, which is still on television, every time you're flipping around, you can find Nashville on some station. A great film.
Yeah.
1970.
75 I came
so
out,
it's 33 years ago,
right.
for which you were nominated for an Oscar.
Right, and of course it was Bob Altman, so how lucky could I get? The first movie I did.
Out of the gate with Robert Altman.
Right.
So what do you think back to Nashville? I know it is a long time ago, but when you think back to it, talk about what that experience must have been like as a new actress.
Well, my family is Southern, they're from Kentucky, so even though I was born in Detroit and lived there my life, most of it, but I spent every summer in Kentucky. So when and Bob is a satirist in many respects. So Bob Altman. So when they started doing this film, and I know how sensitive Southerners are about their culture, and I said to Bob, well, I hope we get out of here before anybody in Nashville sees this movie, because it was, less than, it showed some frailties in the human family who are from Nashville.
It was not a glossed over version of life there. No,
but typically, and now the next generations have loved Nashville, but the people at that time, the more middle-aged people who don't want so much, a bald truth out in the world.
Right.
They would rather have it sugar-coated a bit.
Well, it's a pretty remarkable film to watch and think that this kind of a film, that portrait of that world in 1975, because it was there have been many more movies like that since then.
Yes.
But then it was really something. Really knocked people over.
Well, Bob was he was totally wonderful. And,
Everything he did.
Right, and Prairie Home Companion was his last movie, and he was very ill. He was getting chemo, and but you would never know it. Except that he was more, people would say, well, how different is Bob now than 30-some years ago? And I said, well, he just doesn't ride the crane. And
Is that right?
that was
Otherwise,
only,
exactly the same.
Yeah.
Also, the idea of an ensemble film, really, where although you were singled out wonderfully for the Academy Award nomination.
Well, so was Ronnie. Ronnie Blakely
and
was
Ronnie.
also nominated.
But it's really it's a true ensemble. I mean, it really is a cast of incredible people. Shortcuts. The player was as well, and the fashion movie that Altman did.
Pret-a-Porter, right?
Yeah,
I was supposed to be in that. I was supposed to do that Kim Basinger part, and I pulled out at the last minute because I was working on an Edith Ann special, hoping to get a series. And Bob didn't forgive me for 2 or 3 years.
What's amazing, as we're sitting here and talking about, you did 4 or 5 films with Altman, maybe?
Well, if you count Late Show, 5.
Right. So 5 out of 18 with the same director.
That's true.
It's
I wouldn't
really
even have a job if I didn't have
Bob.
But
it's amazing because it's not a career is not normally built that way. There are certain people who work with the same director a lot, but really that's a remarkable thing.
Well, he was he was familiar.
He was your favorite of all the ones you worked with?
Yeah, I'd have to say that. And then I'll tell you who's a close second is David O. Russell.
Right.
In some ways they were similar, except totally different. I mean, Bob was completely unflappable, and David is
flappable.
Very flappable.
Right, famously flappable.
Yes.
Now you did Flirting with Disaster.
And
I Heart Huckabees. Now I have to ask you, since you opened the door, I'm going to rush right in.
All right.
That has to be one of the YouTube videos that everybody in the country has seen. And
I was just telling
horrible to watch.
Oh, I know. I'm so sorry.
Well, I don't know if it's hard. I don't know if I'm sorry for you or sorry for him, because his
we had 2 of them,
but
you couldn't hear. Well, but there were 2 of them.
Right. Well, I think I stopped at the one because
his
treatment of you made me very unhappy.
Oh, I was very bad in the car.
Were you?
But he was outside saying terrible things, but you couldn't hear him.
Right.
So
you could hear him in the other video.
Well, yeah, no, we were in the same room together, but in the other one, I was in the car. The doors are all shut and there's lights up. I couldn't get out, or I would have gotten out and probably, choked him.
Now, how mortifying is it for you to have that show up in an era when everybody can get access to everything and everyone's talking suddenly about that?
Nothing you can do about it.
No.
And it was 4 years after the fact.
Right.
It was no one expected it to surface. I knew it existed because it had made the rounds of the agencies.
Oh, wow.
This is some footage that was shot candidly on the set when the director and I got into 2 different fights on different days.
Right. For the audience who's not seen it, I'm guarantee you they're going to all rush to YouTube right now and see it.
And some guy in China wrote 5 rap songs to the soundtrack.
You're an inspiration, isn't that great?
Oh, indeed.
Now, how representative is that of your working relationship with him in a situation like that, or is it totally unrepresentative?
Yeah, it was unrepresentative. Right. I mean, although David is. And in this particular movie, he was very volatile because the movie's so crazy, And he was doing stuff with every take. He'd say to Dustin and me, Dustin Hoffman, we were husband and wife, and he'd say, "Now you do Dustin." He'd be yelling over a megaphone, "Do Dustin's lines. Dustin, you do Lily's lines." And it was and Dustin likened it to Jackson Pollock throwing paint against the wall, We didn't know, but we love that. Actors love that. We even love those fights.
And the experience of working with him then, even after all this, is positive.
Well, I really care for him. I have a lot of affection for him, and he's a great artist.
Would you work with him again?
I would. I don't know. He's probably scared to work with me.
He thinks that everyone turn your cameras off.
He knows I'm his. He knows I'm his friend. In fact, there was a New York Times person on the set during one of those scenes, and And he said, oh, she's my, I said, well, you've got the New York Times here. We're going to get killed. And he said, oh, she's my friend, you know, and then later she called me to interview me, and I called him up. I said, David, I don't think she's going to be that friendly, you know, and she did. She did a little piece on him, hatchet piece.
It wasn't exactly as friendly as he thought. Remarkable.
Those darn journalists.
Now, those films were great films. The Altman films were all great films. Obviously, you probably make choices in your career, especially if there's 18, where you pick one and you think, this is going to be great, and then it turns out not so much.
That's right.
So what would be an example of a film that you maybe did and thought going in?
Well, the movie that, the only movie I ever had, in my opinion, that, you know, we got really killed for and that wasn't up to some level would be Moment by Moment.
It was Travolta and you, right?
Yeah.
And that would have been about 70...
it was 78.
Yeah.
Because right after then in 80, I had 9 to 5 come out, and that was like #1
But it was
box
cleansing,
office.
right? It was good for it to come out after.
Oh, very good.
Right. People forget.
It's a blessing.
Yeah. So what happened with Moment to Moment, do you think?
We just, I don't know, we thought it was going to be okay. We thought it was going to be kind of interesting and good. You know, theoretically, I was an older woman with a young drifter. There was a whole drug theme that that finally got cut out of the movie that I think justified a certain